Hi, my name is John and I'll be going over problem-solving questions in the Thinking Skills exam in both the OC and Selective School exam. Let's get into it. Thinking skills is a topic that I've been constantly being asked to make videos about. I've had parents who've asked me to create different worksheets, more videos on this topic, but I've kind of been pushing it back just because my team and I have been so busy with it. However, I know with the opportunity class, which is just around the corner in terms of the exam, so I think this video would kind of tie in quite nicely, try to assist you guys in solving these types of responses and trying to narrow down and maximize your marks in that component in particular. I'll be going over an example of this type of question. I'll also be applying that type of approach in a thinking skills problem solving question as well in the OC sample paper. So hopefully that will help clarify some of your concerns or some of the issues that you might have regarding this question type. The key to doing well in this type of question is to be very clear on what you need to have in terms of the information required to solve the problem that's being asked. Sometimes this will involve mental arithmetic, which will naturally come through practice, but sometimes you can also just solve it out yourself, but you have to decipher which information you need versus which information you may not need at all. In practice, you should become more agile and reliable with the numbers that you are actually trying to solve in your mind, and as well as making sure that you're constantly aware of the different figures that you are dealing with as well. Remember that you don't necessarily have to complete every single calculation within a question in order to solve the answer. Sometimes you can just do an estimation or even do one portion of the calculation and get the answer from that. And that can actually save a lot of time in that exam, especially in the thinking skills component where you are quite pressed for time and you need to solve these problem-solving questions in thinking skills very, very quickly. Let's look at a simple example. I just took this online where examiners can easily just change the currencies, change the numbers around. But this is quite a common type of problem-solving question that you might encounter in this exam. So let's have a look into it. The question says, imagine you are tasked to convert £250,000 into euros at an exchange rate of 1.18 euros to the pound and given the following list of answers. I'll put the question somewhere on the screen as well so you can have a visible representation on what the question is specifically asking. But from the very first get-go, you know that you have to times 250,000 by 1.18. With this logic as well, we know that the answer would somewhere be around 250,000 times 1.2, but just be a little bit less than that because it's not actually 1.2, it's 1.18. A small, tiny bit less than that. Multiplying 250,000 by 1.2 is approximately adding 50,000 on top of 250,000. So the answer will be somewhere a bit short on that. So 250,000 plus 50,000. So it has to be a little bit less than 300,000. So the answer could only be D. Working this out isn't a matter of genius or mental, smartness by any means. It's about habit and habitual practice. So you want to throw out your calculator and try to do this mentally in your mind because in the actual exam, you won't have access to a calculator at all. And if you had to actually write it down and times like that, you'll actually lose a lot more marks when you can actually just do it in your mind. Once you have arrived at an answer, you can immediately double check this by eliminating answers that you know for sure won't be a fit. So the question asks to convert £250,000 to euros at a rate of 1.18. So you know that it's going to be definitely more than 250,000. So we can immediately eliminate multiple choice A and B accordingly. Moreover, you know that it's for sure more than 255,000, so you can also exclude C as one of the responses. So that only leaves question D and E as potential answers. Beware that in some cases, it's really important to know exactly what the question is asking you. So for this instance, if you interpret the question and thought that you had to divide 250,000 by 1.18 as opposed to multiplying it, you would actually result in the answer for A, which would be completely off the mark. So some of these response questions in terms of multiple choice are there to trick you, and it's very important you know exactly what information and what they're trying to ask you in the first place. If there's enough time, obviously I would recommend for you to do the entire multiplication, times like that, but only if you have additional time and you think that this response or that question is a little bit trickier. For the selective exam in particular, I wouldn't really recommend going over a question like this again in extreme detail because you likely won't have too much time. But if on the off chance that you do have a lot of time available left, why not? You can actually double check and make sure you didn't interpret it incorrectly. But usually the other students will focus on the other types of thinking skills questions as opposed to the problem solving ones, because in terms of difficulty level, they wouldn't say that problem solving questions is really high in the difficulty level, but it's still important to get it correct. Also, an additional advice that I'd like to share is if you're talking about tangible goods like pots of glue, paint, etc., and they include a decimal point into it, like 3.4, make sure to round it up to the closest round or whole number, because there's no way you can buy 3.4 pots of glue, for instance. So this is an important thing to kind of keep that in mind in terms of the multiple choice questions for thinking skills, because you literally have to be quite logical in your responses. A similar example of this is also evident in the OC Sample Paper exam that was released for question 25. It is a problem-solving question that can ultimately be resolved through mental math, just like the example that I went through for converting the currency. We are given the combination to make 8 cupcakes. What is the maximum number using flour, sugar, butter, and eggs? As we go down the list, we know for a fact that we have a lot more flour, which is really restricted by eggs, which is the defining number we need to focus on. In terms of eggs, we know that we don't have 3 times the amount of eggs to make the combination, so it can't be above 24. We also know that it is 2 times more than the above, so it will be higher than 16. Therefore, with the process of elimination, the only answer it could be that we have in our mind, it could only be 20. The thinking skills question in terms of problem solving can be resolved through mental arithmetic, but when you're first starting out, I do recommend just going through the entire full process first, because in order for you to accurately and reliably do this in your mind and try to save time in terms of this, you have to do it through practice and repetition. In that last example with the actual cupcakes for question 25 for the OC exam, the remote shutter for my recording device actually broke. So unfortunately, I was looking down and just doing this and doing that. So if you guys didn't notice that was an issue, fantastic. But if you knew that was a little bit weird, that was just me just trying to sort things out. But I would definitely want to pump out this video anyway, because if I push this and refilm this following the OC exam, you're not really going to get too much benefit from it either. That was essentially what I really wanted to share. If you wanted me to cover more thinking skills, let me know in the comments below or visit bigsacademy.com and I'll be happy to chat with you guys there. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.